But we'll spend a good deal of time today thinking together about what philosophy is and why we should do it. This is a philosophy course, after all. And it's not like other courses in a number of respects that we'll see. So why would one want to do this? And what is it that we're doing when we do philosophy? For other academic fields, these kinds of questions aren't all that hard to answer. Think about mathematics. What do mathematicians study? Numbers, fields, dimensions, matrices, and so on. We know what the subject matter of math is. It's math. And the methods of mathematicians are familiar to us as well. Proofs and such. I suspect that most people in this room, maybe all, could fill out this little table. You could tell us what physicists study and how they do so, historians, economists, computer scientists, and so on. Philosophy is a bit strange, though. It is not obvious what philosophers study, and it might be even less obvious how they do it, what their methods of study actually are. Let's see if we can fill in this table, though, with something a bit better than just a couple of question marks. Now, here is one interesting answer to our question from Graham Forbes. Philosophy has the subject matter of anything we find interesting and the methodology of whatever we find useful. Does that answer our questions? Unhelpful, sir. Unhelpful. Now, there is something true and useful in what Forbes has said here, but saying that philosophy is about everything, using whatever methods you like, is not, I submit, an immediately helpful approach. We'll see what's correct about it in due time, though. One way to do that is to take a look at the kinds of questions philosophers ask. What do philosophers try to figure out? What is it they want to know? Here's some examples. What really matters? What has intrinsic value? What is significant? What should command our attention? What should we direct our activity towards? What really matters? Do we have free will? Are we morally responsible for things we do? And could we have done otherwise? Is it immoral, after all, to eat animals? And for that matter, is it immoral to eat vegetables? This would also be a philosophical question. How should we live? What is the good life, and how should we pursue it together? And what are we, after all? Souls, ghosts, bodies, brains, or something else? Do we even exist at all, or is the self an illusion? Why does the universe exist? Is there a God? Why do we suffer? How should society be arranged? What institutions are ideal? Can death do us harm? These are among the questions that philosophers ask. And of course, the biggest and most important question of all, is Bitcoin good for the world? One might write a book about that sort of question. In fact, one did. I want you to notice what these questions have in common, except maybe for that very last one. They're big questions. They're questions that have animated thinking human beings basically in all places and all times. And they're not that hard, in fact, to stumble upon. All you have to do is think for a bit, and you find yourself in one of these questions, wondering what it all means, why it's there, what is the point of living, and how shall we live? So these are big questions that animate philosophers. Something else they have in common is this. It's not obvious that they can be answered by science alone or through other technical disciplines. Take a look at our first sample question. What really matters? Think about some scientific theories and some scientific methods. For example, the general theory of relativity. Does that tell us what really matters? No. String theory? No. Can any physicist tell us what really matters? No, that's not their job. They play around with numbers and experimental results. Can a historian tell us what really matters? Well, they can tell us what people have been up to for a good long while. That's not really their business, though. It's telling us what matters. Can economics tell us what matters? No, they can build models. They can tell us how human beings are likely to behave given certain assumptions. But that doesn't tell us how human beings should behave and what human beings should direct their activity towards, the values that really matter. Philosophy is in this way a remnant discipline. We concern ourselves with the questions that are left over when we've done the technical work. We've discovered the way the world is. We've completed science. You've completed all of your other intro classes and questions remain. You still want to know what it's all about. You still want to know what you're here for. You still want to know whether there's a God. And the economists cannot tell you the answers to those questions. The questions that remain are the ones that animate philosophers. And they're the ones, or among those, that we will concern ourselves with here. Here then is my first of 5 pro tips. Philosophy is hard. Because by definition, philosophy concerns the things that we haven't yet figured out. If we'd figured it out, it would have been a science. There is no equation to tell us what really matters. If there was, that would be part of physics, or mathematics, or economics, or something else. Because philosophy concerns the questions that are left behind, it is hard. We're also not very good at it. Evolution has gifted us with the cognitive faculties to be very good at counting medium-sized material objects and running around in the savannah and mating and being friends with each other and building tribes and reading minds and reading faces. We're very good at all that stuff because we've had thousands and thousands of years of evolutionary pressure that selects for hominids that are good at those things. We have not been doing philosophy for that long. 3, 4, 5,000 years. That is a blink of an eye in evolutionary time. So we're just not very good at it. This is the other reason that it's hard. And yet, nonetheless, we're here today to do philosophy together. How cool is that? So we can start to fill in our table by noting the subject matter of philosophy. At a first pass, philosophers ask the questions that are left behind, the big ones that science alone cannot teach us the answers to. How? What do philosophers do, though? What are the tools they use? Let's turn to that question now. Philosophers sometimes appeal to scientific data or theory. They draw on results from our best science, physical sciences, biological sciences, chemical, and so on. Sometimes they draw on historical facts and what those facts show us about human nature. Sometimes they draw on moral intuitions, our own sense of what's good, bad, right, wrong, of what should or should not be. Sometimes we draw from technical results in the social sciences. Sometimes we use logic, the science of figuring out what kinds of things follow from a given statement. And sometimes we rely on vibes and vibes alone. We feel our way to the truth. We start with a hunch or a picture and see where it takes us. What is it that philosophers do? In a way, the answer is everything human beings have ever done to figure things out. And this is another way in which philosophy is set apart from other disciplines. What kinds of evidence count in an economics classroom? How can you persuade your econs professor of something? There's more or less one and only one way. Calculus, brah. You need to show that the area under this curve is bigger than that one, or prove some theorem or lemma. You need to do something with the mathematical tools that economists use. How do you persuade a biologist of something? Well, you show them under the microscope what's going on with this little cell. How do you persuade a historian of something? You show them the manuscripts. You bring to fore the evidence from the past about what happened and why. So each field has a distinctive set, not just of questions, but also ways of approaching them. And philosophy is strange in that we help ourselves. We appropriate whatever of these tools we like. And we're not just trying to figure out answers to these big questions on the basis of some narrow range of evidence, saying, I will only listen to proofs, or I will only listen to experimental data that I can see in this kind of microscope, or I will only listen to data that I can see through this kind of telescope. No, philosophers care about all the evidence all at once. Does that sound like a big task? if you're paying attention, it should. It should sound almost impossible. And yet, it's what we'll do. Again, you might ask, what do you actually do? Well, I'm pleased to say that I do have an answer to this question. One organizing tool or method or approach that we will use in this class is that of the argument. The kind of philosophy we'll do in the term to come involves building and evaluating arguments. We'll say something soon about what arguments are, how to find them, which ones are good, which ones are bad, and what kinds of arguments philosophers like to think about. But let me call back to your attention this question which should be somewhere in the back of your mind if you're paying attention. Because we've observed that philosophy is difficult, maybe even impossible, so you might wonder why we would try to do it. I'll give you a couple of reasons, and I submit to you these for you to think about, and maybe you'll find your own at the end of the term. Perhaps the most important is just to find out. Have you ever thought about one of these big questions? What it all means, whether there's a God, why we're here? Did you ever want to find out? Congratulations, you're in the right room. I cannot promise to you that we will find out, but I can promise to you that I will help you try. This is how we try. We do philosophy. Another, perhaps even better reason is that philosophy is unavoidable. You already have hunches about the answers to these big questions. You have guesses about how to go about finding answers. You have a hunch, for example, about whether there's a God or not. You're already doing philosophy. You've already done philosophy. When you were 5 years old and asked your mom, why? She gave the answer. Why? She gave the answer. Why? You were behaving like a little philosopher. The instinct is natural enough. Philosophy is everywhere, and we all do it. The real question isn't whether we'll do it, it's whether we'll do it well, and whether we'll pay attention carefully to what it is we're doing, and to try to be serious in our approach. Another reason to do philosophy is that if we don't do it, someone else will do it for us. We are surrounded by bad philosophy. And if you haven't thought carefully about arguments and how to dissect them and how to approach in a serious way these big questions, someone else will do it for you. This is not the way of a free person. The way of a free adult is to do this work yourself. And if you don't, someone else will do it for you, and they may or may not have your interests in mind. There's a warning. Here's an instrumental or tool-like reason to do philosophy. It's a gym for the mind. We have various cognitive modules. Think of those as little muscles. We can choose to use them or not. We can exercise them or not. Making distinctions, being precise, looking carefully at phrases or words or sentences or paragraphs and thinking about how they fit together. These are extremely useful skills for communicating, for being understood, for persuading, and for getting your way in the world. You can flex those muscles by doing philosophy. It's a gym for the mind. So come, let's do some reps together. Finally, philosophy is fun. Do not take my word for it yet. But in fact, it's true. Philosophy is a lot of fun. This is perhaps my main reason for doing it. I like it. It's fun. You will see for yourself whether you can find the fun. But here's a suggestion. If you seek, you will find.